I know that you did musical postcards as well during the lockdown period. How was that for you?
It was really interesting because I co-parent with my ex-husband, but I'm in charge of my own finances, and my kids obviously come from a family of two professional musicians, and it was really tough because I was on tour with Rob Brydon when it
Mm,
happened, and basically, do you remember that sort of Twitter shaming period
I saw,
about the
yeah,
gig?
remember?
And it was really awful because a lot of us didn't actually have the choice because we weren't putting on the events and we were contracted to turn up whether we felt safe or not. And then the people putting on the events, they weren't sure about whether to do them because the government guidelines weren't clear enough.
Mm,
So what happened was towards the sort of, I think the dreaded day was March the 12th. Around that time, we were still very much on tour, playing to 1,000, 1,500 people a night.
wow.
And then the Twitter gig shaming started happening, and Rob was getting some really quite abusive text messages and tweets about it. So he decided to pull the plug before the government sort of
Mm,
told us we had to. And that night, when we finished sound check and he decided not to go ahead, we literally saw the audience leaving, and that was
really?
heartbreaking. And the atmosphere, I mean, was just awful. The atmosphere you see being on tour with a comedian was at the other extreme. We were having the best tour ever. It was just extraordinary. And to have that night, which was such a contrast, and literally just get on the train and go home without even doing the gig, it was really bleak. So that night, my kids heard the Boris Johnson speech about sort of advising the theatres to shut. And I think my son got pretty tearful because he knew what it meant. I mean, he was the only one really in his class who had two self-employed musicians as parents, and he knew that affected him more than the lawyers and the other
Mm,
people in the class. So I felt a real responsibility to show him as a parent, as a mother, and as someone who runs a business, because we all
mm.
run our small little businesses. How are we going to deal with this? Are we going to just give up and just wait till the phone rings, or we're going to be proactive about it? So really, it was done in sort of defiance to him to say, "Look, we can do something. Let's muck in together." And I think I did have one sort of day of feeling a bit rocky because I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. And then the next day, I put a tweet out saying, that the tour had been cancelled, and this is what this is what was going on. I didn't have any gigs, and one girl who I was actually at school with, who is extraordinary. This is a bit of a diversion, but apparently she was badly bullied at my school, and I don't remember this bit, but apparently I did stick up for her when we were both teenagers, and she was a bit older than me, and she said she really wanted to support me and to say thank you because we hadn't been in touch for 20-25 years. And she said, "Look, I think you've got something here. It's Mothering Day coming up. Why don't you come up with an idea where you can give a little musical postcard instead of a bunch of flowers?" She says, "I'll
Mm.
make your first order." And she did a flyer and everything, and then suggested I did Patreon. And it all really started from there. And because I've got no business head at all, I should have probably just sort of stuck 3 tunes you could choose from behind a paywall. But it's not me. And I was like, yeah, choose anything you want in the world. So it was like for 12 hours, I was like researching abstract American folk songs and you name it, hip hop songs. I did Beyonce. I mean, some of the most inappropriate solo cello music you can think of. I did. I got 70 orders in the first week.
Wow.
So I started
70.
like, it was amazing. When everyone else was having a massive existential crisis and in bed, I was there with my son, sorting out a tripod, trying to sort of get our room sort of studio ready. I mean, I never invested like some people did, but I just got the basics early on and worked out a system. I got much faster at it. But you know what? It was the whole thing. It was like having a shower, putting my makeup on, putting a nice dress on,
Hmm.
performing, and spreading that thing that I love to do, whether it's in front of 15,000 people or one person. That's what I do for a living. So it did really, really help me in those first couple of weeks of lockdown, just kind of grab onto what I'm good at, what defines me, and be comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how that came about. I mean, it's slowed down a bit now that it's out of major lockdown, but I'll probably have a few orders for Christmas, I hope.